I did it again, but this time I got it on video instead of having to recreate what I did after the fact. I unintentionally engaged traffic-aware cruise control in a Chick-fil-A drive-thru, basically telling my Tesla Model 3 to accelerate to 10 miles per hour the moment I removed my foot from the accelerator. That sounds weird when I put it that way, but I'll explain why that's important later. Here's what that looked like. What the... Oh my gosh. This is crazy. It is. But I guess it's easier for you.
It is. It's a lot easier.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a great day, sir.
Me too. What the? Oh my God. I did it again. Dang it. I wouldn't blame you for thinking that that didn't look like a big deal, but it didn't look like much because my instinct was to tap the brakes, which disengaged cruise control. But the fact that I was able to do this at all is a pretty big deal. Let's look at that again, but this time I'm going to show you how this is possible in this particular drive-thru. The first thing to notice is that the animations show that the autopilot computer thinks I'm at an intersection on a road and not in a drive-thru. This is because Chick-fil-A paints their drive-thru lanes the same as public roadways. Since autopilot does not have geofencing, the autopilot computer had everything it needed to allow traffic-aware cruise control be activated from a stop. This alone did not cause the issue. It's the fact that Tesla chose to mix drive controls and autopilot controls on one stalk with the exact same movements having different effects based on context. I use drive-thrus all the time, food, banking, pharmacies. Most of the time, I'm waiting for them to run a card or get my coffee made or whatever. So it's a habit for me to put my car in park while at the window. However, Chick-fil-A takes payment when you place your order, and I didn't even have time to put the car in park before I had my food in hand. Muscle memory took over nonetheless, with me attempting to put the car into drive when it was already in drive. Without any speed limit information, the set speed defaulted to 10 miles per hour. I didn't rocket to that speed because the autopilot computer doesn't take over throttle control until after the first time you lift your foot off the accelerator. But by the time I did that, I was approaching the fake stop sign and making a turn with auto braking kicking in and all sorts of weirdness that made me gently tap the brakes as reflex. This is 100% operator error. I get it. What is unique to the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y is the consequence of that error, one that could potentially result in damage to property or even harm to a pedestrian. I think a perfect example of designing around the user, not just what you want the user to do, but what you can expect the user to do, is this shift gate in my 2005 LX470. It looks kind of like a random squiggle, but it's not. Every position from park to reverse to neutral to drive has a unique movement associated with it. And it also, as a position, prevents you from doing a catastrophic error. For example, I'm in drive, like I was in the drive-thru. And then I think, wow, I'm in park, I better go into drive. Well, in order to get out of park, you have to first move to the right and then you pull back. Well, if I'm in drive and I'm thinking I'm in park, I'm going to push right and it goes nowhere. I can pull back and it goes nowhere. I can instantly determine without looking that, oh, I'm not in park, I'm already in drive. Let's say instead, I think I'm in park, but I'm in reverse and I want to go into drive. Guess what happens? Wow, reverse to drive is the exact same movement as park to drive. It doesn't follow the same full path. But if you accidentally think you're in park and you want to go to drive, but you're actually in reverse and you want to go to drive, it doesn't matter. You're going to end up in drive doing the exact same motion. Now you're in drive and you want to put it in reverse. You're going to push up and work it over while keeping the pressure to the left. Well, you get to this point where you end up with, I'm going to have to put it in park so you can see, this tab here is harder to get around than this one. So it automatically catches the stalk of the shift lever. It's not only designed around making it easy for the user to repeat, but it's also designed around preventing the user from ending up making a catastrophic error, like going from park into reverse accidentally instead of park into drive. Like going from park into drive accidentally when the user meant reverse. Like going into drive or reverse when the user meant to go into park. And of course, there's no way to activate something like cruise control or autopilot or anything like that that's mixed in with this shift gate. The multifunction drive stalk in the Model 3 and the Model Y is not designed around the user. It's designed around what Tesla needed to do in order to minimize the controls that they had to install. Some of that is their design philosophy. Some of that is their attempt to keep the cost of the Model 3 and the subsequent Model Y as low as possible. That's resulted in what I think are two potentially dangerous mistakes, catastrophic mistakes. The first is what I just showed you. When you push down on the multifunction stalk in park, you go to drive. But if you're already in drive, you end up activating traffic-aware cruise control, and the minimum set speed is already 10 miles an hour. The more dangerous mistake that you can make has never happened to me, but it has happened to someone that I know. It has happened to multiple people that have contacted me on my other video. When you are in park, to go into reverse, you push up the stalk. If you're in autopilot or traffic-aware cruise control and you want to cancel it, the smoothest way to do that is to feather the throttle as you bump the multi-function stalk up. That deactivates traffic-aware cruise control or autopilot, and you don't end up with an immediate activation of regenerative braking, which is what happens if you disengage traffic-aware cruise control or autopilot by tapping the brake. You tap the brake, instantly the throttle control is going to turn off from the car. It's going to revert to the driver, but since your foot isn't on the throttle, it's going to go into regenerative braking. Not very smooth at all. So I and most people I know, when we're deactivating traffic-aware cruise control or autopilot, we're feathering the throttle as we bump up the stalk. But not only is bumping up the stalk reverse when you're in park, you can actually go into reverse straight from drive, even if you're moving forward at a couple miles per hour. And so the situation this creates is when somebody is coming up to a stop and they instinctively go to disengage traffic-aware cruise control or autopilot, but they've already slowed down below that, I don't know what it is, 6 miles an hour or so, and then they end up putting it in a reverse, and then when they go to hit the accelerator, they shoot backwards. And I haven't seen any reports of someone actually getting into an accident. I have heard of people having brown pants moments, and I think any of us would have that if out of nowhere your car started to go backwards when you thought it should go forward. That is 100% a consequence of Tesla's multifunction stalk. That's 100% a consequence of, for whatever reason, software engineers deciding that you don't have to be at a full stop to switch from drive to reverse or vice versa. I don't understand that. That isn't even just a multifunction stalk. But it's the two of those things combined that result in the possibility of a very catastrophic mistake. It's a foreseeable mistake. It's a mistake that Tesla software engineers, Tesla designers have to already be aware of, that this is happening out in the wild. You can blame the driver all you want. It doesn't matter. These are common mistakes that drivers are going to make. But if you're not designing your product around the mistakes that you can expect a user to make, philosophically, I'm not saying morally, I'm not saying legally, I'm saying philosophically, I see that as on the designer. In this specific case, though, you can end up with a very catastrophic result. I'm really glad to see that in the Model S and Model X refresh, Tesla is continuing to keep the drive functions and the autopilot functions separate. I was a little concerned that when they showed that simplified yoke and then ultimately a steering wheel, which is what my preference would be, they were going to simplify things so much that these controls are going to get mixed together again. Of course, they went stalkless, and then it made the most sense to have separate buttons for selecting drive, reverse, neutral, as well as initiating traffic-aware cruise control and autopilot. In fact, the buttons for selecting drive and reverse are going to be on the screen. There's going to be an AI method where you can allow it. It's not required. You can have it as a feature. Guess which direction you want when you're pulling from a stop. I really want to see that in action before I pass judgment on it. I remain open-minded about that. But thankfully, they're actually going to also be touch buttons down by the phone charger so that you're not just limited to trying to hunt on a screen. In an emergency, you're going to be able to reach down and hopefully you're going to be able to feel some kind of index mark so that you could quickly select a gear to get out of trouble. Obviously, I'm a fan of manufacturers like Toyota designing their products around keeping the user safe from themselves. I'm not a fan of cutting corners in design. I'm not a fan of form over function, which honestly I'm seeing more and more of when it comes to the software side of things. In this Model 3, as we're getting more updates, I'm not alone in thinking that. I'm hoping that when they come out with the new big revision that they're going to reverse some of the bad choices that they made in the usability of the touchscreen. But you get my point. One last time, it was absolutely 100% operator error when I chose to push down on the stalk when I was already in drive, activating traffic aware cruise control. No question. But it's a function of design choices that Tesla made that allowed that consequence to that error. And clearly, there are other manufacturers that look for those kinds of things and work hard to eliminate them in their design. I make videos like these not to complain, but I know that people at Tesla do watch my videos, and I hope that some of this stuff resonates with them and makes a difference in future designs, or at least is in the back of their mind as they're making design choices. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, be sure to subscribe. I really appreciate you watching the Tech of Tech, and I hope to see you next time.